We're always told that empires have a shelf life. They're born, they conquer, and then, inevitably, they crumble. And the fall of Rome, well, that's the classic example, right? We're taught it was just too big, too corrupt, that it was destined to collapse under its own weight. But what if that's all wrong? What if the Roman Empire didn't just die of natural causes? What if it was an assassination, murdered in a single moment of betrayal, that literally changed the entire course of human history? To get what happened, you have to picture this. It's 461 AD. The Western Roman Empire is, let's be honest, on life support. But its emperor, a guy named Majorian, he's different. He's a throwback, a true soldier emperor, like the legends of old. Seriously, this guy was the West's last real shot at survival. Majorian's whole comeback plan depends on one thing: taking back North Africa from the Vandals. And this wasn't just a land grab. It was about survival. North Africa was the breadbasket of the empire. No grain from there meant Rome starved. No tax money meant the army didn't get paid. In our history, his entire invasion fleet was burned in the harbor by traitors. And just like that, the dream of a restored Rome went up in smoke. And this is that single moment, that pivot point. The Vandal king, Gaiseric, he was smart. He knew he couldn't beat Majorian's navy head-on, so he did the next best thing. He paid off Romans to do the dirty work for him. And a few traitors, with a few torches in the middle of the night, well, that's all it took to send an entire continent into a 1,000-year-long dark age. But what if the plot failed? What if Majorian, who was known for being a brilliant but also deeply paranoid commander, actually saw the betrayal coming? That one little change, that one question is where our story begins. It's the key that unlocks a whole new timeline, one where Rome never, ever fell. So in this new timeline, Majorian doesn't trust his number two, a general named Ricimer. He has him watched. And sure enough, the night before the invasion, his guards catch a messenger with a secret note for the Vandals. The whole plot is blown wide open. Ricimer is arrested and executed for treason by sunrise. And when the Vandal saboteurs creep into the harbor, they're not met by sleeping guards. They're met by legions who are very, very awake. The fleet sails. The invasion is a massive success. The Vandals are crushed. Suddenly, the grain ships are sailing back to Rome, the treasury is filling up with gold, and the people are hailing Majorian as Restitutor Orbis, literally, the restorer of the world. The immediate danger is gone, but the real changes, the golden ripple effect, is just getting started. With the West stable, and more importantly, rich again, the entire path of civilization just veers off into a new direction. Majorian's victory doesn't just save the empire for a little while, it kicks off a new dynasty, one that finally solves the constant civil wars, and creates a level of stability that prevents the world we know from ever even existing. And what's the single biggest consequence of all this? It's absolutely mind-blowing. Because Rome survives the Dark Ages. They just don't happen. Think about that for a second. 1,000 years of lost progress, of forgotten science and crumbling roads, just poof, erased from the timeline. I mean, just look at this comparison. Our timeline. Europe splinters into a messy patchwork of warring kingdoms. Feudalism takes over. Knowledge is lost. Theirs? A single unified empire, one set of laws, the roads and aqueducts are maintained, and most importantly, all the knowledge of the classical world is preserved in libraries, ready to fuel what comes next. And progress just hits the accelerator. When the Islamic Caliphate expands, it doesn't meet a bunch of weak, squabbling kingdoms. It meets a powerful, unified Rome. The result is a stalemate. And instead of centuries of war, they start trading. Not just goods, but ideas. By 900 AD, Roman engineers using ancient texts rediscover steam power. And by 1050, that's almost 800 years ahead of us, they're building the first industrial factories. So society itself evolves in a totally different way. Majorian's reforms bring the Germanic tribes into the fold as full Roman citizens. The whole Roman versus barbarian thing just fades away. With a strong central government, you never get feudalism. And because the emperor is still the top dog, the church never becomes a rival power. It basically becomes a department of the state, which means none of the religious wars that tore our Europe apart for centuries. Okay, so let's jump way ahead to their present day. They don't use our calendar, of course. For them, it is the year 2777, ab urbe condita, from the founding of the city. And their world? It's almost impossible for us to recognize. The world map is basically just Roman. There's no France or Germany. There's the prefecture of Gaul, the prefecture of Germania. The empire stretches from the cold mists of Scotland to the sands of the Sahara. And yeah, they crossed the Atlantic too, slowly bringing the continents they called Terra Hesperia, the Western land, into the Roman fold. And because their scientific progress never got hit with a 1,000-year pause button, their technology is just staggering. Forget 1969. The first Roman legionaries planted their eagle standard on the moon in the year 1902. And they didn't stop there, not even close. By the time our grandparents were born, they had already cured cancer. By 1960, they had a permanent, self-sustaining colony on Mars. And by the late 20th century, their entire civilization was running on clean, limitless fusion power. In this world, Latin isn't some dead language you study in school. It's the living, breathing language of the entire planet, of business, science, and technology. They don't have the internet. They have the reticulum, the net, and it's all coded in a language that evolved directly from classical Latin. Now, this all sounds pretty incredible, right? A star-ferrying, technologically supreme Roman Empire? But, and this is a huge but, all of this progress came with a price. This world is not a utopia. It's a world of perfect order for sure, but it is also a golden cage. See, their whole philosophy of life is different because the Dark Ages and the chaos that followed never happened. They also never had a Renaissance or an Enlightenment. The idea of individual rights never really took hold. For them, the highest possible virtue is civic duty. Your personal freedoms, your desires, they always come second to the stability and glory of the Roman state. So, this is the great trade-off. On the one hand, you've got a unified, stable world with technology beyond our wildest dreams. No religious wars, no feudalism. But on the other hand, you've got a complete lack of personal freedom. Dissent isn't something you debate in public. It's something the state manages quietly. The messy, chaotic, beautiful thing we call liberal democracy, it just doesn't exist. And that leaves us with one heck of a question. The fall of Rome, in our world, was a catastrophe. But out of that chaos, eventually came the ideas of individual liberty and human rights. They traded all of that messy freedom for perfect, predictable order. And they reached the stars because of it. So I'll leave you with this to think about. Would you make that trade? Would you give up our chaotic liberty for their beautiful, stable, golden cage?